NumbersFairy Reacts. My name's Jacqueline, aka luxombabe, and this is the series where I take your suggestions for YouTube videos and react to them and give my advice. So this one has been really requested, which is just Dave Ramsey. People just want to hear my opinions on Dave Ramsey. Throughout the years, I've actually drastically changed my opinion on him and how I think about his advice. But let's revisit this. Let's dive in. For anyone that isn't familiar, I'm sure almost everyone watching this is familiar with who Dave Ramsey is, but he is someone that I would consider an old school money guru, personal finance guru. He's helped a lot of people get out of debt. His advice is really popular, and a lot of people find a lot of success with it. I've never personally vibed with it. It never came across as something that was like realistic or applicable for myself or my lifestyle. But let's check it out.
So, George, 30 years ago when I started teaching this stuff, I was first teaching people how to get out of debt, live on a budget, be generous, live on less than you make. So you have a plan, you avoid debt, you save money for emergencies and later for investing. And all of those principles work, but people kept saying, which one do I do first? And so I started laying out, well, you should do this first and that first. You should have an emergency fund before you start your 401k. And then I figured out it's easier to have an emergency fund if you don't have any payments. And so you need to get out of debt first. Because, of course, I learned my lesson the hard way, going bankrupt and getting out of debt, and learning how important it was to be debt-free as a process, as a part of building wealth. So all of that started to formulate after a few years of teaching in various settings and what became Financial Peace University. It used to be called Life After Debt. And it started becoming what we now call the baby steps. And the interesting thing is that now the baby steps have gone into the Total Money Makeover book, which has sold almost 10 million copies. And they have become the proven plan, the shortest distance between where you are now and wealth.
And most people stay on the first 4 baby steps for like 25 years. But anyways.
Where you are, if you'll live like no one else later, you can live and give like no one else. What is the shortest distance? And we need a path to run on, because the way you eat an elephant, it's overwhelming. Do I do my 401k with the match, or my kid's college? Or do I have an emergency fund? Or do I pay on this 18% credit card debt? Or, and nothing gets done. You get paralysis of the analysis, you get frozen.
Absolutely. And this step, these baby steps have worked for me. They've worked for millions, and it's really simple. If you do it, they work. And it all starts with baby step 1, having this foundation, saving $1,000 for a starter emergency fund. This is just a small buffer between you and life before we start tackling the debt.
Exactly. And
this is a great idea. I find a lot of people, what's that statistic? Like 50% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So, I'll look up the statistic, but the same amount of people, 50% of people, wouldn't be able to cover an unexpected $500 car expense. So it's like, that's a great place to start, because I also find that a lot of people, if they're just starting to take control of their finances, they're just starting to maybe make good money. You could still have a really high income and not have any cash at the end of the month. And spend a lot of energy transferring money between accounts. And it's just like, for some people, really getting that first that first $5,000 under their belt, they're saying $1,000 to cover emergencies. But the process of actually stacking cash for a lot of people is a repatterning of their behaviors. So far, first step, nothing wrong with it.
If you have $1,000 already, great. Just set that aside. That's your baby step 1. Any money you have that's not retirement, anything you can sell that is not retirement, you're going to liquidate it. If it's not retirement, you got some stock over here that Grandpa left you. You got a gold bar under your bed. I don't know what it is, but you got any money that's above $1,000. Maybe you got $10,000 in a savings account. That's $9,000 you got. that you don't need past baby step 1. We're going to put it all on baby step 2. And baby step 2 is the famous one. That's the debt snowball, where you list your debts smallest to largest. You pay minimum payments on everything but the little one, and you attack the little one with a vengeance. Side note, baby step 1 should not take you more than 30 days. Maximum. You need to work extra, sell some stuff, have a garage sale, put the kids on Craigslist, whatever you got to do here. Let's get it done. And, you know, we're going to get busted into this, get $1,000 quick. Baby step 2, you should be debt-free, but your house. Now, you may have to sell a stupid boat. You may have to take an extra job. But
see, and this just shows, it's like, this just shows how far disconnected, or I guess how, for a lack of better terms, stuck in the 80s Dave Ramsey is. Housing, you know, debt-free except your house is an exponential amount of debt for most people, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars for most people, as opposed to a couple $1,000s on a credit card. So for him, I don't know, it's just the issue I really found with his advice, and this is 10 years ago when I first read the book, is, you know, in his book, he talks about, oh, buy a house for $100,000, rent an apartment for $500 a month. And it's like, yeah, maybe if you live in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, you can do something like that, right? If you live in a major city, housing prices don't look like that. Rental prices don't look like that. And then it's kind of like he's so disconnected from maybe like the working class, where it's like, oh, $1,000 in 30 days shouldn't take you more than 30 days. You should sell everything you own to get there. You might have to sell your boat. It's like, dude, you are so disconnected from what the cost of living is like now if the advice is to sell your boat. Like, at this point, you're talking to people that have high incomes, someone that was even able to buy a boat to begin with. You're not talking to the 18 to 30-year-olds. You're not talking to the people that have been in the workforce. You're not even talking to millennials at this point. You are talking to Gen X and older.
Most people that have followed the Total Money Makeover baby steps in Financial Peace University are debt-free inside of 2 years.
Yeah, and that's with doing it with some gazelle intensity, like you talk about in Financial Peace University. And once you pay off all that debt, now you've freed up all those payments, right? You have that income
Think
back
about
in
what
your
it'd be
life.
like to have no payments but a house payment. Wow.
We're breathing easy. And then we can move on. 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. This is the final buffer where we say we're never going back into debt because we are the bank now.
Yep. Grandma's rainy day fund. Why? It's going to rain. Dave, you need to be positive. I'm positive. It's going to rain. You need to be ready when crap happens. There's a pandemic coming around every corner. There's something coming, and if you have $20,000 cash in the bank, 3 to 6 months of expenses, whatever it is, and you have no payments, you are the third pig in the 3 little pigs, the one that's in the brick house when the big bad wolf comes. You're ready for life. You're ready to go. Now you're ready to build wealth. But that you just now have gotten up to ground zero. You've just now gotten up to even. When you have that emergency fund and you're debt free, now you're ready to build wealth. And in baby step 4, you put 15% of your income aside into good growth stock mutual funds in return.
And see, I like this advice because I find that a lot of okay, so this is where it's like 50-50 with me and Dave Ramsey, because I like this aspect of his advice where he's saying stack cash before you start investing. I find a lot of people that are coming into, again, learning about investing, they want their money to grow. They want it to grow passively. But they're still in massive credit card debt, and they don't have the basics of personal finance taken care of. They don't have things like an emergency fund. They don't have cash sitting in the bank to cover expenses, which really what the purpose of that, if we think deeper about the purpose of that, that's to make us feel secure, right? That's to provide us a sense of safety and security. In reality, that currency can completely lose value, and it does lose value just sitting in the bank account like that. But the point is that we feel covered. All of our expenses are covered. So I like that he's saying this, because then you don't find, following this kind of system, you're not going to find yourself constantly needing to cash out on your 401k, constantly needing to transfer a couple $100s between all of these different accounts to make things happen, and you're not attempting to invest in order to get out of debt, right? That's something that never makes sense to me. Is someone wants to put money into a 401k that's maybe going to earn 5 to 10%, although I made 80% returns on my 401k, but that's because I got really aggressive with it, and it was a small enough amount of money where I was able to view it. I didn't have an attachment to it basically, but 5 to 10% conservatively, where you have debt sitting over here that's 20, 25%, 29%. The credit, variable interest rates right now are super, super high in 2023. So it's like, this actually makes perfect sense. If you still have credit card debt at 20, 29%, it doesn't make sense for you to be putting money into a 401k or an IRA or anything like that that's going to earn 5 to 10%. The math doesn't math.
Retirement plans. Start where there's a match. Beyond the match, always do Roth. And if you exhausted Roth and match and still are not to 15%, then go on to a traditional 401k or IRA. But do Roths before traditional and do match before Roths.
And if you're self-employed, solo 401k, SEP IRA. I don't know a lot about, employer matched 401ks because I only had one job before that actually matched. So that was the only time I ever contributed to my 401k. But yeah, self-employed people, like, we have options with this kind of stuff too. If you're interested in traditional investments, right? And this is where, again, he kind of shows, he shows his datedness in this. And this video is only a year old, where a lot of younger people, we're not going for these traditional investments. We're not having faith in the financial system in the same way that his generation has faith in the financial system, right? Think about pensions, how pensions have basically disappeared over the last, 15, 20, 30 years. People his age sometimes are still like, oh, you got to get that job to get that pension and the health insurance. And there's so much about their version of financial constructs that it's becoming obsolete at this point. So, this is good advice if you're interested in traditional investments, traditional investment tools, so to speak. But a lot of us aren't. I'm putting my money where I think the world is going. And where I think the world is going, no one's going to give a shit about 401ks. No one's going to care about IRAs. I'm putting money into land, precious metals, things that I think are going to stand the test of time, because I personally don't have faith in the financial system. I don't think that the existing financial system we have today is even going to make it another 5 or 10 years. I might eat my words on this, and I might be 80 years old with not being able to cash in on my retirement, but, I have assets other places that aren't just putting money in some arbitrary account and hoping and praying it'll go up. PBS actually has a really interesting documentary on this. It's called Frontline, I want to say it's called The Retirement Scam. I'll link it down below, or maybe I'll react to that one next, because it basically goes into, needing, in order for your IRA or your 401k to actually make money, you have to be making like 15% returns, because a lot of the fees are so high for these 401ks. So you'll see people that just keep putting money into it, and the fees are just lowering that every year. You just need to check out the fees for all of these and making sure that the percentage of fees that you're paying every year is going to be able to compensate for your expected returns. Because if not, it's literally just an account where it's losing money. You could have just kept that in a high yield savings, or just even in a regular savings account, and at the very least it's not going to lose money year after year.
It's mathematically in your favor to do that, up to the 15%. Don't do 20%, don't do 11%, do 15%. While you are doing baby steps 4, you're also going to be doing 5 and 6 simultaneously.
Absolutely. So baby step 5 is where we're saving for our children's college fund. And this is going to look different for everyone. There's no set number here because it really depends on your situation.
Did you have the baby last week, or is the baby 18? That makes a difference on how much you need for college, right? I mean, what you got to do for college. Just like, is this an oh crap moment, or hey, we're going to be diligent and save? Did we wait almost until too late? Now, they have to go to college debt free. They cannot participate in this epic student loan system failure that is called America right now. It is horrible out there. Do not let your kids go in debt. You do not have to go to debt. Go to community college for free for 2 years. Go to in-state school, work 6 jobs, get scholarships. Our student loan problem is a parenting problem. Mom and dad let kids sign up for crap they couldn't afford.
Okay. Possibly true. I love that he brought up community college. That's actually what I did while I was still in high school. My high school had a program where we could take community college classes for free. So I ended up getting my bachelor's when I was 20. And I did graduate with student loan debt, but I also saved quite a bit of money just only doing 2 years at a university or 2.5 years at the university rather than, all 4 years. However, I wouldn't say that student loan debt is a parenting problem any more than I would say any government subsidized economy is a parenting problem. It's not. It's a government problem. All you have to do is look up what happened to the tuition prices when the US government started subsidizing student loans. When did FAFSA come out? When did the Pell Grant come out? Title IV funding. And what happened to tuition prices? So is that a parenting problem, or is it that parents are so accustomed to sending their kids to public school, sending their kids to doctors that, do whatever to them, get a bunch of unnecessary medical things done, right? Is it the system as a whole that's creating this idea that the government will just take care of it, right? The government will take care of student loans. And I mean, you can see how fired up he is about this, but he's speaking to the parents and putting the blame on the parents rather than putting the blame on the people that are actually creating the problem. So,
bad mama, bad daddy.
They got to have the
see,
conversation.
he's so shaming. It's all
there's a reason you say baby
bad.
step 4, invest for yourself before the kids, because there's a 100% chance you're going to retire. There's a 50-50 chance or less these days that your kid's going to go to college.
And graduate.
Yeah.
Yeah, this less than 50% chance they're going to graduate. So this is important. So while you're doing 15%, you do whatever you need to do for your kids' college, whatever you decide to do for your kids' college. Beyond that, if you can find any money, you do that on baby step 6, and that's pay off your house. Start chunking on the house. Now, when you're in 1 through 3, you are so intense your friends are freaking out. Your grandmother thinks you need counseling. You are gazelle intense like a gazelle running from a cheetah. When you're in 4 through 7, you're not intense anymore. You are now intentional. You're just doing it on purpose. But you're no longer on beans and rice. You're on beans and rice, rice and beans. Scorched earth on 1 through 3 till you get those 3 things done.
I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, right? Because the book I read 10 years ago was probably written in the mid-90s. So he's still on the beans and rice thing, dude. Like, come on. So what you're saying here is sacrificing your health. If I ate beans and rice, I can already tell you what would happen. I was vegetarian for 7 years. I already know how my body is going to react to, and I know this isn't like literally like, oh, you literally have to eat beans and rice. You get what he's saying though. You need to sacrifice your joy and your nutrition in order to get out of debt to a multinational bank using money through an inflationary banking cartel. Like, I am supposed to sacrifice myself for the banking cartel. Like, no, dude. No. And I think it was at this point in the book where I just decided that there's just some people that, people get rich in 2 ways. They get rich by doing this type of thing and completely sacrificing themselves, martyrdom to the max, like the scraping by, doing whatever it takes kind of attitude. And then there's people that get wealthy refusing to compromise, right? I'm not compromising on the lifestyle I live, the food I eat. Sure, I'll take a look at some of my spending habits, bring them more back into alignment. Sure, I'm going to get out of debt and not get into more debt with frivolous purchases, right? There's a difference between being smart with your money and, being frugal and living below your means, and then doing what he's talking about, which is sacrificing your happiness, sacrificing your dwelling, your well-being, your comfortability in order to have this result. You can't take money with you when you die, and especially if you don't have children. Like, what are you leaving this for, right? So you can look back on your life and say, remember the 4 fucking years that I ate beans and rice so I could get out of debt, so I don't owe a banking cartel more money. It's like, oh, was that really worth it when your fucking teeth are falling out and your hair is falling out because you haven't eaten any good protein because this fucking fool is telling you you need to be eating beans and rice? Just hearing that from him, it just triggered something in me. Just triggered something in me. It's not right. And people think that that's the only way, right? They look at him, they look at his institutions that he's created, and they think that that is the way. And there's so many other ways to do it, where you don't need to compromise your nutrition, where you don't need to compromise your comfortability, your dwelling, your happiness. Think about it this way. Are you going to make more money? And especially if you're self-employed, are you going to make more money when you're well fed, when you have the things that you want, when you get to experience little daily abundance and daily luxuries? Or are you going to make more money when you're putting yourself on a shoestring budget and you're just scraping by and you're steeped in scarcity? You're telling yourself, no, I can't buy that steak. I need beans and rice to save money. That is scarcity, and you're just steeped in it. I think that's going to lead to a lower income. For me, that would lead to me making less money, right? Because I'm not taking care of myself. So there's a difference between being egregious in your spending habits and actually enjoying the abundance that life is today. We only have today, right? This moment right now. This is the life we have. A couple years from now isn't promised. So
now, get that house paid off. The average person following this stuff is paying off their home in about 7 or 8 years. Now, that tells us that the whole program is taking about 10 years, and the average baby steps millionaire, the average everyday millionaire that we've studied, we're finding them become a millionaire from the time they start with intensity followed by intentionality, become a millionaire in about 10 and a half years.
Yeah.
11.2 years, 10.6 years are the two numbers we keep running into. So this is completely possible.
Yeah, and once you pay off that house, it's time to build wealth and give outrageously in baby.
10 years to a millionaire. Yeah, with inflation the way it is. I mean, come on.
Step 7. That's where it ends.
Yeah, you will be a millionaire shortly after your home is paid for if you don't at that.
Because your equity will be your net worth will be a millionaire. He's not talking about having $1 million here, right? He's talking about your net worth is going to be a millionaire. Well, that's not difficult to do when housing prices are up 300% since 2019, right? Like achieving that. And so much of his advice is cyclical, it doesn't take into account cyclical economic advice either, right? He's not focusing on macroeconomics with any of this. It is purely his system. You keep moving through it. But if you think about it, you could have bought a house in 2016, had it appreciate to, June 2022 housing prices, sold your house and become a millionaire that way, right? And got through all 6 steps or all 7 steps in 6 years and you wouldn't have had to follow any of his advice. You just timed the market, right? So it's like, bring macroeconomics into this. I know people say there's no timing the market or anything like that, but when you start paying attention to patterns, you start paying attention to patterns repeating themselves and history repeating itself, there's so many more ways to build your net worth to a millionaire than just investing in a 401k and paying off your house, right?
Moment. And then you continue to build wealth, and you raise your generosity, and you continue to build wealth, and you raise your generosity. And you enjoy the money at that point.
That's where it gets fun.
You can only enjoy the money after 10 years, though. So keep that perspective. So, I mean, all in all, not terrible advice, right? There's aspects of what he's saying that's great. And then there's some aspects where it's just so dated at this point. He needs to go back and redo this for 2023, or at least the 2020s. And let's do these steps with today's housing prices. Let's do these steps with today's food prices, with how inflation is, with where wages are. Do this with someone that makes $19 an hour, that is, or $20 an hour or something like that, a median wage, that is trying to buy a house today. Someone that's completely debt-free, trying to do these steps, trying to invest in their 401k. Let's bring back realistic examples, because the cost of living since his book was originally written is completely different. Wages have completely deflated. Like, the wages have not grown correlated with inflation whatsoever. So all in all, I'm still 50-50. We'll have to do more. Hey, everyone. Jacqueline here. Thank you so much for watching this episode of NumbersFairy Reacts. Be sure to comment your feedback down below. I love reading your comments and anything that you learned or laughed about along the way. Also, be sure to check out my courses and ways to work with me one-on-one. My website is www.numbersfairy.com. And be sure to follow me on Instagram. My username is @luxombabe. I'm basically luxombabe everywhere. And we'll see you next time for another NumbersFairy Reacts.